continue with Mr. Evans' presentation.
Okay, when we left off, we were talking about these pie charts for the vacancies. To go over a few of the larger additions or vacant position departments, the health department has 49 direct care vacancies, 17 in community health, and 11 in the group leader. The education is showing 29 vacancies, with almost half of those, or 14, being in the cultural department, as well as 11 additional in child development. Moving around to the right, the chief's office has 18 vacancies, 4 of those in the chief's budget, 5 in the communications department, and 4 in the Washington, D.C. office. And I believe some of those Washington, D.C. office may actually be some temporary positions. The human service has a big slice there with 34 vacancies. 12 of those are related to the meth reduction initiative, and 12 vacancies in that meth reduction initiative out of a total of 33.
Mr. Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a question. Doug, the registration office, where would it fit in here with the vacancies? Which area right there?
That would be hold on. I'll tell you wrong. That'd be in the chief's office. There are 2 vacancies in registration.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, the reason I asked that, months, years, whatever ago, people say, well, I put in for my registration. I tried to get my card and all this stuff, and the story was back then they were like 6 months behind. You know what I mean? And that's a long, long time. So, personally, I'd like to see some of those areas like that filled so they can get caught up for our people. That's just a comment I had. I'm done.
Okay. Okay. Continuing on with human services and their vacancies, like I mentioned, 12 of those meth reduction initiative employees. That program has 33 positions, and 12 of them are vacant. We're approaching over close to 40%, around 35% of their employees are in vacant positions, and you're going to see that the effect of those vacancies, because it's having an effect on their underutilization of their current year budget. Child support enforcement also has 8 vacancies, as well as the child care grant has 8 vacancies. That pretty well sums up the larger vacant departments. Any more questions before we move off of this one? Yep.
Mr. Blessings.
Look at community services. Let's see what that is real quick now.
Community service, those 24, 10 of them are in roads construction.
Yeah, I figured that.
8 of them are in engineering sanitation, and 3 are in the group leader.
Thank you.
All right. We can get this thing to work again.
And I'd just like to make a short comment about the roads position. And I think you're going to find that in other departments. Those are really hard positions, and I think the goal of the road program is to hire those people that have a complete road program over there. Those positions are hard to fill. Engineers, your designers, people that does the roads for the surveyor. Those are hard positions. That's the reason they're vacancies for dang long. So I think you're going to see those in other departments where those hard to fill positions are going to be there. So I know that's the problem with the road. Thank you.
That really permeates through the health department and some of their highly specialized positions that are difficult to fill as well. Okay. The new hires. The human service department has 39. 17 of those are in the rental assistance program. 10 are in child support enforcement. The child support enforcement, again, that's budgeting these 10 new hires, also in addition, as I just mentioned, has 8 vacancies. So I'm really curious, if they can't fill their vacancies, how are they going to fill 10 new hires? This is a relatively new program coming up online for the child support enforcement. We'll see it throughout the Attorney General budget coming up as well with the dollars. But there's a significant amount of positions here that are obviously going to have some challenges in getting the position filled. Education, you go around to the right, education's got 8 new hires. 7 of those are the immersion project vacancies. New hires, I'm sorry. Health has 26 new hires. 8 of those are direct care in the clinics. 13 are in community health preventive service. And again, community health with the 13 new hires is in addition to the 17 vacancies. I do want to point out one thing. I think I mentioned it earlier in the memo when we started off this review. The 152 tribal hires at Hastings are not considered new hires. They're considered existing employees. Okay. Financial resources, the 17 new hires identified there, 9 of those are related to the Hastings assumption, and 6 are related to the succession planning. Any questions on this chart? Okay. And we'll bring it kind of all together in total staffing level. There's a note down at the bottom of that chart there. It talks about the 152 new hires, or tribal hires, rather, being at Hastings. Pretty consistent growth. I wasn't able to actually go in and lay the previous year budgeted positions versus filled positions, again, because this is the first year I've had that information accessible to me. But this will be good comparative data moving forward. Any questions on this? Okay, now in your book, okay. In your book, there's a pivot table right after the last chart, graphic chart, that begins with by group or by funding source, where is this budget being funded out of? What sources? And you'll notice there's 7 funding sources at the top of that report that I've identified as being defined as somewhat of a discretionary natured funding source. Obviously, tribal funded is 100% discretionary. Pretty much motor fuels is too. Indirect cost pool, motor vehicle tax, and the self-governance funds through self-determination. I kind of refer to those as kind of semi-discretionary. We have latitude from the funding agency, and when they I forget what they called it, they bundled all those 638 contracts and put them into a compact. We have a little flexibility of how we divvy up that fund for those general purposes of health and other items. There are some self-governance funds that are down below that I didn't categorize. You'll notice below that bold line as a discretionary nature, because they have different attributes related to them that go through an approval process. For instance, the road, list and prioritizing that inventory and list of roads, and then there's other reasons. And there's a whole slew of other funding sources down below that are predominantly driven by the funding agency. And you'll see that the largest increase by far is the health self-governance, showing a $65 million increase over the 08 budget. It's also $81 million over the 07 actuals. Some other significant movements are in the tribal funded. You'll notice that the 09 budget of $76 million is $32 million less than the 08 budget. Again, there's a significant amount of carryover that's not included in this budget. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Dr. Cox.
Line item number 85, what's private for $872,000?
I don't have the report here. How can you help me with
That is used for those funds that are not federal or state. Some of that, I believe, is loan funds that EDTA operates. Do you have the details?
I'm just curious what
Yeah,
falls under
I can get that for you. They're private donors,
Is
basically.
Gammon in there?
No, I don't believe it is, because we're going to move that to CNEC after the
We have-
attorneys.
Non-federal grants in there.
Yeah, there would be some, no, it would be some non-federal dollars. But I'll get you the details on it.
Thank you.
Okay. One thing that stands out on this report is looking at the 09 budget, and again, these numbers exclude indirect cost recovery, the bottom note on the page. This is expenditure authorization. The 2007 actuals is $326 million, and this is $502 million in this budget, an increase of $175 million, with almost half of that being related to Hastings. So although the numbers appear to be, I mean, there's some significant changes in this 09 budget that's driving some very large variances. The next page in this overview is a comparison 09 to 08 budget as well as 07's budget to actual comparison, and then the 09 budget compared to 07 actuals. And it's a detail of the revenues, also a detail of the expenditures. Some of the things that are substantial: contract services, $22 million increase. A significant amount of that, I'm sure, is due to the MOAs and IPAs of Hastings coming into the contract line. Salaries and benefits, salary and fringe, $19 million. Well, 152 tribal hires are impacting that number, as well as all the unfit, the vacancies and the new hires. You'll notice up above that carryover is reduced by $46 million, and look for a significant amount of that to turn around as we go out through the closing process. Third-party health revenue, $34 million of revenue increase in 1 year, with the lion's share of that, almost $30 million, being Hastings. Here's a 31. 31. You take 31 away from the 34 third-party billings, that means that the health department here is increasing around $3 million, which is a good increase, because they were around, what, 12, 13, 14? That's a significant forecasted increase in revenues by our own health department outside of the Hastings operation. This is a real busy page. I realize that, page 2, so I don't want to spend too much time here.
Client services.
Client services.
We have 5.7.
There are dozens and dozens of programs that use that account, and I wouldn't even try to stand up here and try to imagine which one's reducing client service line. I can tell you what could be a potential part of that is Talking Leaf's Job Corps has what appears to be 2 grant years in 2008, as well as the child care grant appears to have 2 years in 08. We're going to get into that a little bit later, but those are some of the programs that can have some significant client service in them. That could be this may be an arbitrary decrease. It may not be real. Okay. Any other questions on this page full of numbers? Okay. Page 3, you'll notice the salary and fringe comparison by category. I mentioned earlier where we were breaking out the service groups from the resource groups and the government groups. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Dr. Cotton.
Under boards and commissions, are the CNE, CNB, CNI boards, are they included in this?
No.
Okay, thank you.
They would be funded out of their respective entity that they serve.
Good deal, thank you. And I do have notice, what's Cherokee Public for a lot of those? Of the governments and boards?
Publications, yeah, I abbreviated that. Yeah, that's Cherokee Phoenix.
Got you.
Sorry. Cherokee Public.
Seems like we're funding the public. Cool.
Okay. The next page, page 4, is a table that shows you each group and the breakout of their salaries and benefits and full-time equivalents by whether they're existing, they're vacant, or they're new. So you can tell that this particular table of data has driven a few of the charts that we've looked at so far. You can see that $127 million of the 150 is existing employees, which leaves approximately $15 million of unfilled positions, either vacant or brand new to this budget. Now, I went ahead and broke out the merit pool in a separate category because, quite frankly, the merit increase of 3% that was applied to these budgets were also applied in a lot of cases to unfilled positions as well. Are there any, and you see the note down at the bottom again reiterating that 404 MOA IPAs are not included in this table due to being contract services and not salary and fringes. But the 152 are, and they're existing. Any questions? Okay. Now, the next page is a report that takes that table we just looked at and breaks it down as level. We're going to drill down into by department now. So where there were a few questions earlier about, okay, if the Office of the Chief has 18 vacant positions, where are they? Well, you can look over on this column, for example, and see 5 in communications, 5 in government relations, 4 in the chief. You see, this is just a drill down approach to the report that we just looked at. So if you have any questions or interest of, further drilling into these position numbers, this report will provide that. This report is irrespective of funding source as well. So we've talked a little bit about the discretionary funds and where are these coming into play as far as the dollars associated with the new hires.
Dr. Cotton.
So if I'm reading this right, the vacant positions equal about $9.3 million, is that correct?
Yes. And the new ones would be on top of that. Approximately 10% of our total budget. And if you think about it, organizationally, every large organization has turnover. That's a given. Depending on the nature of some of these departments and programs that are administering, are going to experience higher turnover than others. If a 10% turnover rate is reasonable, then you would somewhat expect a 10% unfilled level at any given time. So I don't think these numbers, this is good informational data. I don't think it's necessarily reflecting an unrealistic number of unfilled positions in comparison to what we've got filled. Again, the concern over all these numbers, and the reason I brought them to light in this review, is the magnitude of how many they are in relation to the space cost requirement if they are to be filled.
You're telling me there's $7.5 million tied up in the merit and the bonus
for employees we don't have?
No.
No?
There's 7.5 for the entire staffing package of this budget.
How much is tied up in these, do you think? Or do you know, or can you think?
Well, I think it'd be approximately 3% of the $15 million. About $500,000. 3% or whatever the dollar is. I think, I don't know any other way to estimate what it would be other than,
So they wouldn't get that until after a year anyway, wouldn't they? Or, I'm confused about that.
well,
Because they're on probation for a year.
6 months, isn't it? Introductory period?
We have a 90-day review, and then depending on when during the year they're hired, they might be eligible for merit and they might not. So it depends on when they're hired during the year.
Okay. Now, let's go to the next tab, and we're going to start looking at those discretionary funding sources. The actual funding sources that for lack of a better term, can be, anything can be done to them anyway, okay? These are the ones that the opportunity lies in with the discretion of how they're utilized.
By division?
By division, okay? Yes, it's discretionary by level 1. And you'll notice the very first one is the Gen Fund, the most discretionary funding source, tribally funded. This is where we're seeing how the organization is using the most discretionary dollars we have as far as allocating those resources out to the different groups to administer their services. Here we see in Gen Fund the effect of the carryover, a $32 million decrease in budget. Again, I look for the majority of that to reverse itself when the audit comes. It is, however, $19 million more than 07 actuals. And we've talked a little bit about some of these discretionary programs that were initiated through initiatives in 2008. New initiatives, $12 million was put on the table for new initiatives in 08. And it looks as though that at least half of that will go unspent. Some of those will be coming online. Some of them are already in this budget. They're already in this budget, and their carryovers already in this budget related to it. Some of them are not. There's a significant amount of programs in the general fund that are not new initiatives, but are tracking 10 months into the year of significantly underspending their budget. That expected carryover coming out of this fiscal year we're ending right now isn't contemplated anywhere in here yet.
Of the new initiatives from last year, are some of them being refunded even though they haven't used all their money up, or say half their money up?
Okay, I distributed this report earlier. I was asked to prepare this discretionary report and identify the carryover budgets and flag the new initiatives from 08. I think you all have a copy of that. Okay, the pink ones are those new initiatives. If they have a blue 2009 budget out beside them, they're being requested to be reappropriated and to utilize the monies that are expected that they won't utilize this year. Carry over their funding from this year into next year. If there's no blue on it, then they're requesting brand new monies for 09. Is that clear? I mean, is that? No, okay. Okay. The pink lines are the new initiatives from 2008. Okay? The administration requested several new initiatives, and there were a lot of programs got started at various points of this year. Some of them didn't get started until just recently. Well, if that pink line for 2009 budget, that first column, if it's blue, okay, they're requesting carryover funds. They're requesting funds they're expected not to have gotten to utilize this year. They're wanting to request those same dollars next year to utilize, okay? It's a good thing. Now, if they are spending their money, and you'll see right there in the 08 budget versus 08 projected and the dollar remaining right next to it, if they are spending their money and they don't have a blue 09 budget, they're asking for new funds next year to continue that initiative with '09 revenues. Okay?
Fishing miles.
So is that a reoccurring expense now that it's been 2 years?
Most cases, yes.
Okay, and we funded last year's reoccurring expense with carryover.
Well, some of the initiatives were reserves. Okay, those aren't recurring. Some of them were special. A couple of them were special project type stuff. Not really, but a lion's share of them, probably half of it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because I know Callie earlier in her comments, when I wrote down word for word, that you don't put surplus into reoccurring expenses. So out of these ones, it was new initiatives last year, which ones are reoccurring?
Well,
Out of the 11,
okay, we can go through them.
because that's really contrary.
We can go through them one at a time if you like and get clarification. But keep in mind, we're only talking about a select few of this total funding source. We're only talking about the ones that were part of the new initiatives of last year. There's a whole slew of others that aren't colored here, that's contributing.
Yes, Ms. Campbell answered that.
Thank you. When we prepared the 2009 budget, one of the first things I did was basically take carryover out of the equation, and I looked at salaries, I looked at fringe, I looked at recurring expenses. And what I was looking for was these recurring expenses that are being requested, are they sustainable with our current revenue? And I believe they are. Now, there are carryover requests in this budget that are project related, such as electronic dental records, and that's a project that was started in '08 that's being carried over to '09. So, if you strip away all of the carryover from this budget, I believe we have sufficient revenue to cover our recurring costs. That is something that I'm very sensitive to, and just because it was a new initiative in 2008 does not mean it was funded with carryover. What it means is it was a new initiative that was requested in 2008. Well, I kind of got the impression that you thought all of the new initiatives in '08 were funded with carryover, and they weren't. They were funded with recurring and carryover. Some of them are project related.
But some of them were funded with carryover.
Yes, but those should have been the project type. Like, for example, $6.5 million for a capital improvement reserve. That's a good use of carryover to set that aside for capital projects, which should be a recurring or non-recurring expenditure.
And we carried over $126 million last year, but none of it was for expenses.
The 126 million is across all funding sources. 121.
So none of that was used for none of that was used for reoccurring carryover is what I'm getting at.
I haven't looked in detail at every single grant, but I know that all of the program managers are very careful when they look at their carryover on a grant to make sure that they're funding their expenses out of current year revenues.
One other thing to keep in mind on this, Jordan. Oh,
Give me an example, Doug, like go to page 3 under financial resources and where it says succession planning. Just take that line and tell me what blue, pink, yellow,
Okay.
what all that means.
okay. Succession planning, as you recall, was an initiative in '08 for $827,000. It was never utilized in '08.
That's higher in the seconds.
Correct.
Okay.
None of that was expended at all. So what they're putting it back in the budget for '09, they're not asking for new monies in '09, they're asking for carryover funds from '08.
Okay. But if it's a pink, say up here on, under health services, work site wellness, okay?
Yes.
In pink, it's 100,000, that's new money,
That's new money.
because they used last year's money.
Well, no, they didn't, but
They didn't?
they're
So-
asking for new.
So,
and-
are they wanting this new money and keep this old money?
No. They're not asking for the old. The old money, for the most part, is not in the budget yet. Okay, let's drop down to the bottom, and I think I can clarify some of this. If we drop down to the bottom of this report, look at the totals. Okay, this is Gen Fund. There's $76 million in the 2009 budget. There was 108 million in the 2008 budget. The 2008 budget of 108 million is projected to expend 58 million and leave 50 million remaining. Now, am I willing to stand here and say we ought to have a $50 million carryover in this budget? Not at all. Because there's a significant amount of that is already in the 09 column. Okay, 20 of it. 20 million of that 50 is already in this budget. 23. Thank you, Kelly. So that leaves approximately 28 that's not. Are we spending at a pace to expect that 28 not to exist? I don't think so. But are we willing to set monies on the table and appropriate and start spending when we don't know what that dollar amount is yet? I think it's just prudent to wait. Is there opportunity here? Sure. There's not a lot of opportunity for revenue to go up and availability to appropriate. The treasurer is just more comfortable waiting on that closing of the books to occur.
I was going to say, after the closing of the books, and usually in January, you look at the overall.
Yes.
It's carried over. Especially now.
So is it safe for me to say, and keep in mind when I start going through this budget, there's a good possibility I have 27 million that hasn't been brought to the table yet?
It's scheduled.
I would disagree with that, and in fact, I think Doug and I have a state dinner bet on that.
20 million?
I'm not in a position to estimate that right now. For example, I ran this report last week. Part of what's making up this $50 million is higher ed Pell scholarships. Carryover might be 1.2 million. Well, we funded more than 1 year of scholarships in 08. So that's expected to be brought forward specifically for those scholarships. Contract health for health services right now, they're showing they're $3 million underspent. Well, we always have to do a big accrual at year end for services that have been promised for this year. So that may go away.
Well, Kelly, what might help me is, you said over lunch you would find out, run a report real quick and find out how much you brought to the table after budget hearings.
Oh, okay. I didn't get a chance to run that report. But the slide I had up earlier, can I bring, or did you run that? Did you run a report?
No.
We have copies.
Did you just run it tonight?
Yeah, what I was going to point you to is the slide that I did with the surplus, where I showed 2003 forward. At the end of 07, we had an additional 3.8 million of surplus, which would have been brought forward into the budget. A couple more. Keep going. There we go. This is where our carryover comes from, is basically our actual sources versus our uses, and that accumulates over time. Doug mentioned that in 2008 we put $12 million of unappropriated carryover on the table, and that's because of 05 and 06 we had accumulated a large surplus. In 07, our surplus was only 3.8 million. Our expenditures were 57 million and our revenue was 61 million. So that carryover or surplus is decreasing, and I really believe that in 2008, instead of having a surplus, it's going to go the other direction. Our carryover is going to go down.
So these are the audited amounts?
Those are the audited numbers there.
I need to clarify something on this chart. These annual buckets are just that. They're
Yeah,
annual buckets. The surplus yellow line at the bottom are accumulating every year.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you accumulate up to 100 million. Okay, the general fund actually accumulated up to 38 million. Okay, so even though you go down from 10 million down to 3.8, okay, don't think your carryover is going down. You're just not building it up as fast as you were before. But the balance is not going down.
Well, and maybe I misaddressed your question. You had asked how much we brought forward additional in the '08 budget. It would have been approximately the 3.8 million because that was the additional surplus after we
Of that
closed the
year.
books
Of that year.
of that
For
year.
that cumulative, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah,
If it was 35 at the end of '06,
yeah.
which I think it was, we only put 3.8 more into it, but we added up to 38
Right.
by the end of '07. So even though it looks like carryover's going down, no, it's just, its growth is slowing down, but it's not going down. When that turns into a negative is when carryover starts going down.
And I think that's what you're going to see for 2008, actually.
Doug? 3.8 in '07, is that after we had the new initiative?
They came online in, what, the '07 initiative?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a whole nother list of initiatives.
How much was that?
Well, my memory doesn't work that well. I'll have to get back with you on that, Dave. I don't remember the '07 and, well, wait a minute. The '07 new initiatives, is your question, right? Not '08s, 12 million, but the '07s.
Andrew, quick, Doug.
4.5 million. And there they are. And I can tell you, a significant amount of those meth reduction initiatives are still to this day underutilized in the appropriated level. And we're going to talk about some of those when we get into the division.
Well, if we hadn't had those new initiatives, then it'd stay about the same. '06.
That told me last year that I had to carry over.
What was the '07?
3.8.
Yeah, quite a bit upwards around, right? But, well, you're assuming they're going to spend those budget amounts. Because these are actual. I mean, these are after expenditure, irregardless of what the budget is. You know, once you get to that actual level, the budget is really irrelevant. Does that help? Storm?
Thank you.
Like to know what
Am I right
the
here?
report?
Yeah.
Okay, because I want to see how much was brought to the paper last year after the hearings. I'll get it.
When am I reporting? 1 minute. Next page, motor fuels tax. We've talked a little bit about our motor fuel tax compact and what the revenues are doing. If you want to look at who's utilizing the funds any differently, you'll notice that one of the significant decreases here are in the education service and the housing. Now, remember last year we went over how this report is prepared. There's 3 different levels. You'll notice the 3 tabs are all discretionary dollars, and they're by 3 different levels. One by division that we're going over now. The next one's by department within each division, and then the third is all the way down to the program level. So if you want to get specific in these reports, you can go to tab 3, where it's discretionary dollars by level 3, and that's the accounting unit for the actual budget level. Here's the will of the council. I don't want to presume to know what level of detail, Mr. Chairman, you want to go through this information. These are all discretionary dollars. I mean, if we're going to go through the discretionary funds and look and see what's moving up and down within the programs, we need to skip over to tab 3 and just go through it in detail.
Okay.
And answer all the questions right there, instead of trying to dig through back and forth, figuring out what's causing the number to go up and down.
Okay, let's go through that.
Okay, let's start off tab 3. Again, we're going to go into these in order of their funding source. Number 1 is tribal funded or the general fund. This will give you a group. As you notice, it's a landscape report, so we'll have to turn our book sideways. The It'll go down through the groups. You'll notice Office of the Chief is the first one on here. And then it's going to break out each department within that group and the Gen Fund programs being requested. So the Office of the Chief, Communications Department is the first department listed. And it has 4 discretionary budgets within the Communications Department. Hymnal and Radio Show, which is a slight decrease in their budget. The radio show alone has a slight increase, so it looks like these 2 accounting units just got combined. Okay. The Communications Department is holding a relatively flat budget in Gen Fund compared to last year. It is flat, but it's significantly increased over 2007 actuals. You'll notice that that last budget on there is an increase of 82% or $315,000 in the communication budget.
Are you gonna go over why, oh, sorry.
Now,
Are you gonna go over why that later in there? So
I'm not going to justify anyone's budgets.
But I mean,
Okay.
back in the narrative, we'll hit on that.
Yeah.
We want
I'll-
questions
in
That's not
the
something-
particular department's review, I'll point out some of these significant items. If a department like this, communications, and I'm explaining that department, and it has a particular funding source such as Gen Fund that has a budget that has a significant increase, like 80-something%, okay? Usually, I'm going to point those out in the commentary of the analytical review part. Okay, when I review a department, I'm looking at it irregardless of their funding source. If it's moving significantly up and down operationally, okay, so its total funding level is taking significant increases up or down, I'm going to explain it or inform you of it and tell you what I know about it. Okay.
Mr. Baker.
Now, what's the difference in communications, Cherokee Nation communications?
I don't know.
Oh, that's probably a misdescription. This first one is the public relations campaign, the $750,000 that's set aside specifically for, the positive ads that have been playing on television. That's what the $750,000 is. And then the second accounting unit is the actual staffing and the costs of the communications department.
Keep in mind, this is only half of their funding. Okay, they're the half indirect cost funding.
Except for the public relations campaign, that's all tribally funded. Mr. Chairman, as far as operationally getting through the budget hearings, it's at the will of the council. I can ask department heads to come over. I can call, say, Doug's getting ready to get to this section, or would you rather us just take a list of questions and have people come back in maybe later this afternoon or tomorrow to answer? How would you like to address that?
Let's go ahead and take the questions and
Okay.
and have them come in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other general fund budgets in the chief's office that have significant increases. The rest of them are relatively flat. You'll notice I put the percentage change out here so we could just skim down through here and look at those percentages on the budget to budget comparison. The 07 actuals is always good to understand that any time that we consistently budget at a certain level, but yet consistently underspend that budget, you'll never see any movement in the budget to budget comparison. You have to compare to the last year's actuals. That's where you're going to see, and again, in the departments that I've noticed a consistent trend of budgeting at one level and spending at something far less than that, I've noted in the review sections and commentary.
Ms. Jordan.
Just kind of as an example, Doug, I'm looking here under governmental relations, under charitable contributions. Where would that break out what those are?
The charitable contribution detail is in your white book that was submitted to you by the administration, and it's the last page of the chief's section. Okay, there's a detail, some of you may have brought, yeah, Joe. In that book,
It's the last page.
it's
of
the
the
last
chief's
page under the office of the chief. Is a detail itemization of what makeup of that charitable contribution is.
Ms. Jordan?
Baker, would it be appropriate at this time to consider a motion to add something back in?
No, I think the proper time for that is when we get to the detailed tabs. We're going through the chief's office later. We're going through each of those tabs, starting with chief's office 01.
So when we get to 01,
Yes.
that'd be the appropriate time?
Yes.
Okay. This
Continue.
Okay. Continuing on in the budget, you notice the significant, well, you see the decrease on the tribal council's budget down at the bottom. And again, part of that's due to the community assistance not being included in the budget.
Dr. Cobb?
I think you mentioned this back in the tab, but I did want to bring it up. I think back in the tribal council tab, you said the decrease is due to the community assistance line item not loaded into the system
Yes.
by administration. That's $170,000.
That's 170.
Where's the other? You're looking at decrease.
Some of the other decrease.
4,666.
Yeah, some of the other decrease is related to, there was, in the couple of years in the past, there was a budget item that was representative of legal counsel for, help me explain this, Meredith, a minority. A minority legal counsel representative was added to the budget in $100,000, okay? And Speaker Fraley asked me to remove that out of this budget.
Got it.
That's the best way to explain what that was. That's what it was. I mean, it's a legal counsel funding for a minority position of the council. Whereas when Mr. Hembry represents a majority of the council, there would be another attorney available to represent the minority side of the council.
Got it.
The reason being that Todd can represent both, he can talk both sides at the same time.
Give you all the options.
And I think that once we get to the individual tabs, a lot of these questions will be answered, and that's actually probably where we should be asking.
It probably is.
these questions.
And Mr. Chairman, you know, when you look at these funding source, I think it's very important to understand Gen Fund, okay, because it is the purest, most, I mean, it's where all the dividend income is, it's where all the governmental, non-earmarked streams of revenue, whether it's taxation revenues or otherwise, and they can literally go to anything. But when you look at who's utilizing these Gen Funds, and you start looking at do they warrant that level of funding or not, you have to consider their other funding sources as well. And so if you're going to make potentially any modifications to this budget, it would be advisable to do it within that division so we get a clear understanding of what their total resources are outside of Gen Fund in accomplishing their purpose. With that, do you want me to keep going here, or you want us just to go ahead and go into the divisions?
I think we should go ahead and go into the divisions.
Okay.
And I might add, as he goes through each division, let's hold our questions till he finishes his presentation on that division, and then we can discuss that division.
It'll be like a 5-minute presentation,
Right.
then we can go into discussion. I'll go over the charts real quick. Okay. Okay, it's not working. Okay, Office of the Chief. Here's the Office of the Chief's total budget. You see, it's approximately $8 million for 2009. That's $2.4 million over the 07 actuals, and it's primarily all Gen Fund, like we went over earlier. The 2008 budget's projecting to have $1.6 million unexpended, with $650,000 of that being in the communications budget and $434,000 in the chief's budget. So about 1.1 of that 1.6 million projected unexpenditures in communications and chief. The 2007 budget, actuals 5.5, unexpended 872,000. Almost a third of that 872 again is in the communications budget. Seeing the trend. The 1.9 million of 2006 that was unexpended, 1.1 million of that was communications budget. See the trend. Any questions on that? By funding source, we can see that the vast majority is out of the general fund, travel discretionary, with IDC pool and a little bit of self-governance. Here's the salary and benefit slide for the chief. It's up 263,000, with 164 of that being in government relations. Government relations. The staffing pattern, 18 vacancies with 4 new positions. Those vacancies, 5 of them are in the communications department, 5 of them are in government relations, 4 in the chief's office. Government relations also has 2 of the new positions, and communications has 1 additional new position. Now let's start going in department by department. The communications department is relatively flat budget to budget. No significant change. However, the increase over the 07 actual spending level is increasing by over 86%, or $436,000. This department significantly increased its operating budget in 2008, with the majority of the increase in personnel costs, of which obviously they still haven't filled, contract services, and operating expenses. The government relations department has a $135,000 increase over this current year budget, or a mere 5%. The Washington Legislative Office is increasing its Gen Fund budget by nearly $200,000, or 73%, and has increased 169% from its 06 spending level. Now, government relations has increased 71%, or over $1 million over 07's actual, just a year ago. And that increase is due to requesting the 2nd consecutive year of funding the PACE program's operating expenses for $750,000. The same as 08. The legislative office increase is also contributing to that for $233,000. The principal chief's office is flat budget to budget. It has a $317,000 increase over 07, and related to the Secretary of State's budget, contributing to that by $88,000, and the chief's operating budget is increasing by $192,000. These increases are representative on salary, fringe, and travel. The solutions department is budgeting flat compared to 08, but that's 40% more than what was spent in 07. And it's also due to staffing increase. The strategy department has a mere 7% increase budget to budget, but compared to 07 is 86%. This is a significant increase, $286,000, and it's increase in staffing. Personnel costs, along with the related indirect costs, account for $223,000 of this budget request that is in excess of the 07 actual spending level. Now, the tribal relations, which is where the registration department, someone asked earlier, is budgeting a 2% increase in budget, which represents a 26% increase over 07's actual spending level, or $166,000. No change in full-time equivalents. They do have a couple of vacancies, but they're not budgeting any new additional positions. This is one department I would think you would expect would have new hires put into the budget. The increase from 07 primarily due to staffing increase that appears to be holding some vacant positions, as mentioned, and additional mail costs also contributed to the increase. Now, Mr. Chairman, the next report, which you'll see consistent throughout all of these divisions, is the budget to actual comparison. It's the new report added for this year's cycle. This is the comparison 09, and lays in each budget what did it do in 08 against its actuals, what the '07 budget do against the '07 actuals, and what did '06 budget do against '06 actuals. This report should provide more than adequate information to establish a pattern or trend for consistently underutilizing or over-requesting budget dollars. And all these numbers support the commentary I just issued. The next report's the staffing report, and again, these are going to be consistent throughout every single tab or every group we have. The next one is the staffing detail, which shows the total full-time equivalents by program and the dollars associated with them. These dollars do include the benefit costs too. It's not just salaries and benefits. And then we break out the total by how many are existing versus vacants versus new. And then the budgeted merit pool. And then the next page, we go into the same 3-level reports that you've seen in the past, where we break it out by funding source as a whole. Page 6, it breaks it out by department. And then page 7 begins the detail of each budget.
Yes, Ms. Casey.
Mr. Chairman, I just got some information from the HR department that I'd like to share with council as we were looking at the staffing levels and the vacant positions and new positions. Our turnover rate is 10%, which lines up pretty well with the vacant FTEs. And so far, our hires for this fiscal year was 346, which is what equates to both the vacancies and new hires in 08. So that I just wanted to point out that our vacancy rate in the budget, surprisingly, is pretty equal to our turnover rate. So that lines up very well.
Thank you.
Now that completes the overview of the Office of the Chief.
Ms. Fisher.
Why is the Washington office increased so much?
Part of the increase for the Washington office is Paula has been bringing in some interns in the summer to help out with that office, and as I'm sure you're aware, our efforts in Washington have increased over the last 2 years. So that's why we have requested and indeed been putting a lot more effort into our Washington office.
Okay, talk to me about PACE. We talked about that yesterday.
Yes.
We're funding them 100% again on top of the $250,000 grant we got last year. When I remember when it was brought to my department.
Okay.
So we give them at least $1 million left. And I talked to you about the break even.
Yes.
Break even, they got 55 slots, the break even is 45 slots.
Yes.
And yesterday when I talked to Ben Stevens, they got 3 people over there.
Right. And just for the benefit of the entire council, Jody and I had a long talk about this yesterday. The PACE program, when we did the 08 budget, it was anticipated that they would have their doors open and be ready to start accepting participants in January. They ran into delays both somewhat with the building, but mainly with the Oklahoma Healthcare Authority not getting everything approved, and in fact we're not able to start accepting participants until August. And what that means is there's a ramp-up period. So they were asking for an additional donation in FY09 to support the ramp-up of this operation. In order to get all of the licensing and be ready to accept participants, they had to have a lot of their staffing, equipment, basically be able to show that they were ready to start accepting participants. So you've got a lot of fixed overhead that's there, and it's going to be there until you get enough of a patient load to support it. I think by the end of 09, we're going to know whether or not this is going to be a break-even operation, which is what we're hoping for. The whole idea behind PACE was that it would provide a needed service for elderly to keep them in their homes, avoid them having to go to nursing homes, and that it would become a self-sufficient operation.
Mr. Baker.
Yeah, and Kelly, correct me where I missed the boat on this one, because I'm all for PACE. I think it's a wonderful program, and God willing, in some point in time, it will break even or make money.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that we don't want to support it and we don't want to nurse along, but this was originally brought to us as a C&B moneymaker.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
The building was financed through CNB.
So C&B was going to build the building and rent it to us, or
Rent it to the PACE program.
as a profit.
The history of that is when I was at CNB, I was approached by Norma and Melissa because they needed to build a building for PACE, and all of the options they were getting, like through a developer here in Tahlequah who had built a different building for them, it was going to cost more per square foot. And so I got estimates, I took it to the CNB board, and they approved doing it as a build and lease back.
Okay.
And that's
So
how,
that's the only profit.
that's the only profit that was anticipated. Some of the costs did increase on that building, and we ended up, I worked with Brad Carson after he took over for CNB, and we converted that to a loan, and basically CNB loaned PACE program the funds for that building, and the interest rate I think is fixed at 6%. So it's still a pretty good deal for the PACE program, and CNB is basically covering their cost of the money that they loaned to build the building.
Okay, Mr. Sutton.
Now, as we look at these projections for 08, does that go through the full budget cycle, or is that just through a certain period of time?
Actuals are through July 25th, and I projected out from July 25th to September 30. There's approximately 9 weeks there that's not included, so there was a factor. I just applied a rate to their actuals through almost 10 months.
Which doesn't take into account any seasonality for things like the holiday.
Ms. Jordan.
Kelly, if we give PACE the whole $750,000, which is, I believe, probably their whole budget for next year, what is the incentive for them to market their product and get more than 3 of those spots filled?
Actually, I don't believe it would cover their entire budget for next year. The projections I saw, they are projecting revenue and a gradual buildup so that by September of next year, they'll still have a small loss in September, but they're going to be very, very close to break even on a cash flow basis. I think the net loss for September of 09 was around $3,000. So I think the plan is that they will build up their patient load and be self-sufficient by the end of 09.
Well, as I understand it, they have 3 clients now, and to break even, they got to get 45. And if they're only going to show a $3,000 loss, they must project that they're going to be by September at 42 or 43 patients.
That could be. I don't have any information on how. Jody spoke with Ben yesterday, and I didn't get the patient information from him.
And if they've had 6 months to get 3 patients, what makes us think in 11 months they're going to get 40 patients?
Well, I can't answer that in terms of the operations. Basically, what I discussed with Jody yesterday was the delays that we encountered, almost an 8-month delay in opening the doors. To me, that's the biggest reason we're having to ask for the same sort of supplement for 09. This is an operation that you get monthly financials on. It comes before the Executive and Finance Committee. I do agree that it's something we need to watch closely in 09, do whatever we can to help market the program, because I think everyone agrees it's a good program, and it needs to be successful.
And I agree, I think it can be a very good program, but as I recall, the last article I saw about the PACE program, it was made very clear to the public that while they're taking all the money they can get from Cherokee Nation, they don't expect to be asked of anything by Cherokee Nation or given any guidance by Cherokee Nation. And basically what I understood from the article was, hey, they built us, they set us up, they got us running, but we don't owe them nothing.
I'm not familiar
Now,
with
that's
the
the article
article.
I got out of the Talpole paper, and I was a little bit put out for it because I realized through these budget processes how much money we had put into creating the PACE program and how little it appeared to be thought of by the gentleman that was running the program.
I'm not familiar with that article.
My feeling is you get more done if you don't say, I'm going to give you the whole wad. In other words, maybe instead of $750,000, we need to give them $250,000 and say, you come back to us and show your progress, and we'll think about the other $500,000 or another $250,000. Because that article was not very flattering of Cherokee Nation, and it was from the CEO of that group. It was basically, you all don't tell us nothing, you just shovel the money to us. And I was somewhat upset. And it was, as I recall, either on the front page or the second page of the local newspaper. And so I have a problem when someone has that mindset of then just giving him another $750,000 with nothing to show us that he will accomplish within the next 10 or 11 months, getting 40 more spaces filled, because these are hard fields. This is a good program, but it's a niche program that you've got to go out and you've got to successfully, aggressively market your program. And I haven't seen that aggressive marketing of that program. And I feel like as long as we feed the program, we're not going to see the aggressive marketing it will take to bring in and fill those slots. Because it is a niche program, folks. It is a day program versus a 724 program. So it has a niche in our society, but they really have to hunt for the clientele. And I don't see that happening. And for that reason, I would suggest to you that this body, being the body that has to watch the money here, be very careful in just handing them $750,000, which, if it's not their whole budget, it's probably 3/4 of their budget. You do not have an incentive to work hard if it's handed to you all up front. Let's hand it to them in pieces. We have budget mods every month. They can certainly come back, and I would expect this gentleman to have the courtesy of reporting to us here in person, live, on a regular basis. He's only got 3 patients to watch over there. I believe he could come here and tell us once a month how many more of those slots that he has filled. That's just my opinion. But I would make that motion that while $750,000 stays in the budget, only $250,000 be given to him until we see a progress report that shows he is making headway to getting his quota or his number filled, so he hits at least a break-even point.
But your motion is to leave the $750,000 in the budget, but
Well, no, my motion would be to reduce that to $250,000 and let them come back, give us a progress report, because folks, they have 3 people over there, 3 people in a fully staffed building. I love that program, but it's got to have an incentive to work, and they're not marketing this program right now. I just don't feel like that they're putting into it what they need to, and why should they? We're handing them their paycheck every month. They don't have to do anything for it. If they fill the slots, they have to work.
the motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
I got clarification. $250,000 would be 4 months' worth.
Yeah.
and having them come back in 4 months, but having them report to us
Yeah,
monthly.
and tell us what's going on over there, because whether he likes it or not, we're the
Okay,
hand that
but
feeds
wait
him
for a
right
second.
now.
I'll second it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Is there any discussion? Yes. Ms. Fraley?
Callie, may I?
Yes.
Callie, is there a marketing plan drafted for the PACE program?
I'm not familiar with it, but I can certainly find out. I know that prior to opening, there was a lot of networking with doctors, even some of the nursing homes, I believe, that
Let me, could I not cut Callie off, but Chief, give us some idea here. We're talking about the PACE program, and I'm really...
Wait, hold it. Callie has the floor.
Oh,
And
well,
Ms.
would you-
Ms. Fraley is the one, Ms. Fraley
I'm
is yielded
sorry.
to.
I'm sorry.
I will yield to the chief. And I'm not familiar with
I'm
it.
Fraley?
certain I did it all wrong.
Do you want to yield to the chief or
I
not?
don't want to, but I will.
I was hoping you wouldn't. Answer the title. In terms of marketing, we hired a consultant 2 or 3 years ago, two very, very talented folks who did this in other places, and so they determined there was a market there. Problem with the startup is they could not announce or take applications or even advertise until they got the sign off by the federal and state government. And that occurred, right at, I'd say, the 1st of August, someplace there. And so they've been aggressively, I actually went to one, I took my mom to one too. They had invited nurse practitioners, nursing homes, everybody in the community of that industry to come and learn about it. So it's a new deal. I believe it's going to take a little time for it to take hold, but there's well established, there's a market for it. I think the slow start is because of the federal regulations that didn't allow them to advertise or promote it until they got signed off.
Ms. Fraley, you still have the floor.
So we decided there is a market, I recall that. Then what I'm questioning, is there a plan to go after that market?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Thorne?
I've got some nursing home business people that's saying that this is probably going to take business away from them. How does it work?
Well, the way it works, the program for all-inclusive care, and I may yield to Melanie, but the idea is that it's an alternative to nursing homes. And what it allows is that the participant, the elderly participant, if they meet all these criteria, will come to the center, and they have a team that looks after this elderly person, dietitian, nutritionist, physical therapist, occupational therapist, doctor, pharmacy, van driver, and they periodically have a team approach to this patient. So the plan for the patient varies. They could come once a week, they could come every day. But the studies show is that their life longevity, they can live longer, and their quality of life is much better by being able to stay at home, come to this facility where they have a team look after them, have some activities, and then go back in the evening. It's cheaper than going into a nursing home. And so perhaps there is some that they get, perhaps they're taking away some business from nursing homes, but their quality of life is much, much better in the PACE program than in a nursing home. I don't think it'll be a large amount because you go to a nursing home as a last resort. The PACE program gives you a viable option to increase their quality of life. You want to add anything to that?
I think Chief stated well, some of the intention is to keep people out of the hospital and keep them out of nursing homes. So the studies show that the nursing home days go down and the hospital stays go down. But at the same time, the program follows them into the hospital or follows them into the nursing home if they do have to go to the nursing home. So what happens is that the program will end up contracting with nursing homes to pay for that care whenever they do have to go to a nursing home, so the doc can follow them. to that nursing home if they do have to go there.
Is this, are these Cherokees that we're talking about?
It would be open to Cherokees and non-Indians. Because it's a CMS program, they require that we have open door policy and serve everyone that comes through the door.
Any other? Does that answer your question? Ms. Jordan?
Chief, would you see a problem to kind of prod them along if we gave them the $250,000 but held the other $500 in Callie's reserve, that little reserve line item you've got, and then we come back with a budget mod with them reporting how many of those slots that they have filled, kind of give them an incentive to keep doing, to get very aggressive, because this is a competitive market that they've got themselves into. Mr. Thornton's, I think, probably hit the nail on the head. The nursing homes are very successful in marketing their product. And basically what they're doing is this PACE program, as I understand it, gets them they're on the steps of the nursing home, but they're not quite there. And so they're going to have to aggressively pull them back, get them into the PACE program, successfully show them how we can keep them going and make their quality of life better, so that their family won't put them in the nursing home. And I'm concerned because community-wide, they don't seem to be as aggressive, and I wonder if it's because we're assuring them they have the operating funds. So they're being very, I don't know if I want to say selective or not as aggressive, but you know as well as I do, 100-person works harder than a person with a full belly.
Okay, well, let me respond in a couple of ways. One is that it's hard to manage a budget when it's piecemeal. I think there's other ways to create the incentive and the accountability that you're asking for. I can tell you out of personal experience, I was very anxious for my mom, who's 84, to go. I was extremely impressed with the staff, the way they did things and such. And ultimately, my mom said she didn't want to go because she didn't want to, she wasn't quite yet to concede that she couldn't take care of herself 100%. There's going to become a day, unfortunately it's not going to be too far in the future, that she will have to come to that resolution. But through that process, we visited, they were kind, they were courteous, they were diligent, they were aggressive. I couldn't say any more about them because they treated somebody very precious to me, tremendous respect and thoroughness. And so what I would suggest, instead of holding this as a carrot and stick with money, authorize it, appropriate it, and let's come up with a mechanism. Probably what I would suggest is to let them prepare, bring over a marketing plan with some benchmarks, so you can see where they're going and the progress toward that.
And we would have like a timeline for them.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Well, we withdraw my motion then. Yes. I would like to try it your way, but if we see after 6 months that they are not adding to their patient load in a timely manner, I feel like at that time we need to sit down and take a closer look at the direction the program's going, because I'm quite concerned about it. I think that could be a very successful program. It could be a signature program for us, and I'm concerned it's not moving ahead, but it's in a very competitive market. And if they don't market their product right, it will never get off the ground. They have a beautiful building, beautiful grounds. Their staff is excellent. I really believe they probably are, but they're sitting out there with 3 patients, and I'm not sure they're Cherokee.
I understand, and I think your comments are well taken, and that's a very good course of action.
So would you like to add a report to the health committee?
And would that be possible that
Yes.
we have the gentleman that operates that unit come and report to us on on a monthly basis, just like the other folks, because, you know, even with the Heritage Center, we don't try to run the Heritage Center, but we give them an awful lot of money, and they show us enough respect to come over here on a monthly basis and report to us.
Well, let me not say a monthly basis. Let's bring them a marketing plan and let them submit to you on a monthly basis the progress on that marketing plan. If they need to personally appear, let's do it on an as-needed basis.
So we start with a report.
Yes, a marketing plan.
And then, based on questions of that report, we could see a human.
Yes.
Did you have anything further, Ms. Bishop?
Yeah, how many of them are Cherokee?
I don't know. I think the majority of the staff is.
Okay. Can we see the original marketing plan that was given to us before we funded it?
We can give you the marketing survey, yeah. We can give you the feasibility.
Feasibility is what I want to see.
There was a feasibility study, yeah.
Okay, that's what I want to see.
Mr. Thornton?
Do they have a third-party collections?
Well, that's the whole idea, is once they get their numbers up, it'll carry itself on third-party collections. And what makes it, and again, Melanie, you can correct me, why it's valuable for us to, we have a better Medicaid reimbursement rate, and it makes it attractive to do.
Then we're putting $750,000 into their program.
Well, there's a break-even point, and I don't know if it's 2 or 3 years, but after that, it carries itself, and you won't be putting any more money into it.
And this covers what areas?
They've got an area, so I want to simplify it, sort of like a 3 or 4 county area. It's a radius of about probably 50 or 60 miles from, is it about 30 miles from Tahlequah. It's got a jagged boundaries, but in essence about a 30 mile radius.
In Cherokee County, Delaware, too.
And we're very anxious for this to work, not just for here, but we want to make it work because we have other areas that we want to succeed in, you know,
Well, I think we've discussed this, and we have the solution where they're going to report it to us, and we should move forward from there. Mr. Baker, good.
And going through the charitable contributions, I see a few that we have dogged and put in the budget in the past that unless they can tell me that they're someplace else, I'd like to mention a few. One is the Indian Finals Rodeo, which every year we have 2 or 3 folks that get to go, and it doesn't even buy gas to get there. But we've been given $1,200 a year, and if 2 of them get to go, they get $600, and 4 of them get to go, they get $300. And but the Chalks pay their folks' way and buy them a jacket and do all kinds of stuff. And we've often, wanted to bump it up and thought about bumping it up, but we never did. But every year they come to us, and the ones that make the national finals that wear the Cherokee seal and compete, we've always had that form, and I don't see that in there.
Mr. Chairman, we did send that donation this past year, sent it, and the address that we were given was to send it to Choctaws, which we did. They sent it back and said they're no longer having the event, and so I don't know if we're talking about different events, but I believe it was a $1,200 donation.
Yeah,
so
$1,200, but
the check got returned, so that's the reason we took it out.
well, if we could put it back, because like I say, I'd like to get to the bottom of that deal. But because like I say, they've come every year, and it's really, I'd like to give more than that. The second thing is last year we gave a $25,000 contribution to the Cherokee Nation Education Corporation, which is a nonprofit. It gives the scholarships to Cherokee students, and surely that was an oversight, or is it someplace else?
CNEC, I will let Melanie address whether anything was requested. One of the big things we are working on for CNEC is to transfer the Gammon and Sequoia Trust over to them to administer, to be able to do the scholarships. Did we get a request from CNEC for any scholarship funds?
Well, it was a council initiative, I think.
Okay.
That came from us last year, and I think it was a good idea, and I don't know why we wouldn't want to do it again, but anyway.
Okay.
Five Tribes Museum, we've been giving them $10,000 a year. And, I mean, they do a great deal to promote the culture and heritage of all five tribes, but it's close enough to home that a lot of folks get a lot of things, a lot of our artists go over there. I say that we've lowered the contribution to the Cherokee Adult Choir by $5,000. So we're going to give them 5, but that means we're not going to give them 10. And I'd certainly like to, I mean, some of these things, I don't see why we'd want to go down. I mean, they're selling tacos right now to go to Cherokee, North Carolina to sing. They show up at our events. And, you know, for them to have to come out of their pocket to make these long trips and stuff, it doesn't quite seem right why we would be lowering it instead of raising it. The domestic violence shelters, we've got 36.5. We gave them 50 last year. You know, that's a reduction of 13.5. And folks, there's more in the shelters this year, and it's costing more than it did last year in just fuel cost and propane and natural gas, electric, those kinds of things. We've funded for the last 7 or 8 years a conference for the Oklahoma Drug and Alcohol Professional Counseling Association for $2,000. I'm sure they've come to expect it, but you know, this is a group of individuals that it is where the rubber hits the road in dealing with our constituents, and it's a Native American emphasis. It's been chaired by one of our employees, and I just, you know, I think we ought to look at that. And then I'm still concerned that Oaks has not received the generator that we appropriated 8 months ago, you know, and for the, you know, when the tornado comes through, when the electric's out, they've got one community meeting or building where the elders can go to and do go to, but when there's no electricity, it doesn't do much good. And so these are, you know, a few of the things that were left out. Well, there was one other. There was I don't know if it was an oversight or if we did it elsewhere, the Intertribal Council staff, or if it's not our turn this year. Do we know about that, Kelly?
Let me respond to you, Chair.
Okay.
One of the 5 tribes, that we intentionally left it out because their mission has gone astray. They don't know that we need to be supporting them at this time. That's 5 civilized tribes museum.
They've gone astray?
Yeah. In fact, I got a letter from them saying that if we want to enforce the idea that they should not allow non-Indians to participate, they would just find another Cherokee Nation to substitute as one of the 5 tribes. It's a bit disturbing to me. I would discourage giving them any money until those issues are resolved.
How about the Tribal Council?
It's pretty much defunct. We haven't met. There's been, we tried to create a staff. The staff didn't work out, and there's not been the effort because each of the 5 tribes are pretty much standing on their own feet without the strong consortium we had in the past. And so we meet on an informal basis, but I don't see that there's a need to. If there is a need, I'll come back and advise you of it. The last one that you mentioned about the generator.
Yes.
A good councilman from Delaware County we talked about that then, and rather than buying just one generator for one building, we would create a pool so different community buildings could check out generators when they had an emergency. So rather than having one generator sitting in Oaks year-round and not being used, we'd have several generators sitting on tap, so any community that had the emergency could access it. And we discussed actually pre-wiring these community buildings so we could go in and out.
Did we store one up there?
Huh?
Did we store one up there?
Well, then you have the same maintenance, ideas of theft, those kind of deals. And I think it was $20,000. I forget what it was.
$4,000.
No, we actually increased it in the last year budget to buy those generators, so we have a pool of them accessible to any community. So that's where that was at, and that's something Curtis and I discussed last year and we were amenable to.
You still have
Yeah, there. Can I yield for a second, Harley? He wants, to Curtis,
okay,
keep
yes.
the floor.
What we had proposed, Chad, was one $4,000 generator. We was going to prep that building up there, and get it ready and fix it where we could secure it and so forth. Then when Todd proposed that new proposal, which was fine, that, he's going to go up and prep it and everything, which never happened. But he reduced the size of the generator down quite a lot. Probably handled it, but what we proposed was a larger generator. We was going to prep the building ourselves, and get it ready for it. We'd be able to stand and for it to be bolted down and couldn't be picked up and carried off in a week. And, well, we'll still be fine with supplying one, but we need it done.
So if we haven't, pre-wired it, we need to do that.
You still have
Yeah, okay. At this time, I would like to make a motion that we add to the charitable contributions the $1,200, and if they're not having the National Indian Rodeo Finals, then we just won't spend it. It'd be $1,200. $25,000 donation to the Cherokee Nation Education Corporation. I'd like to go back to $10,000 or an additional $5,000 for the Cherokee Adult Choir. I'd like to go ahead and put the $13,500 extra or additional to bring it up to domestic abuse shelters that we gave last year, and $2,000 for the Drug and Alcohol Counseling Association for their banquet. I put that in the form of a motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second, with a friendly amendment.
Which is?
The Zoe House here in Tahlequah was I'm hoping inadvertently left off. I have a few statistics on the Zoe House that...
And I'm going to accept that. Second.
Okay, and how much?
Last year we funded them in the amount of $38,000, and that was approximately 20% of their budget. They have served in the past year 5,271 families, or 15,813 individuals. 65% of them have been verified through a CDIB card as being Cherokee families, Cherokee people.
Okay, and he has accepted the friendly amendment. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to offer a friendly amendment to Mr. Baker's.
Well, first of all, I had Ms. Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not opposed to the Zoe House getting funding, but I'm very concerned, I don't know if they have a board or not about the amount of money, not necessarily the amount we're giving, but that it's a huge percentage of their budget, and that long term we can't be expected to maintain that large percentage of their budget. So I'm going to be supportive of this year because I think we have needs like this across the tribe, but I would think that the Zoe House needs to look for additional funds where we're not over 50% of their budget going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, actually,
She had stated it's 20%. Mr.
20%
Buzzard.
of their budget.
Yes, I'd like to offer a friendly amendment to Mr. Baker's resolution. We started a new women's-only shelter in Jay. They have got the old federal building, the old courthouse there in town. They're in the process now of making rooms, and they need a sprinkler system in there. So I'd like to make a friendly amendment to allocate $10,000 for maintenance of that building to get it up and ready to go.
I would accept.
Thank you.
Does a second,
10,000.
does a second accept? Ms. Coates?
As I recall, we had the same kind of discussion a year ago, didn't we, during budget hearings? And there was some discussion at that time that we have a lot of similar types of facilities throughout all of the 14 counties, and rather than doing this piecemeal, maybe we could get some kind of a comprehensive plan together, you know, so that all of them could be sort of funded in an equitable, more equitable fashion. So I guess my question is has that emerged anywhere?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
We took the domestic violence fund that was in this budget last year, that was just added to, I believe, and allocated it to each domestic violence facility that we could find in the 14 counties based on the number of Cherokees served. So that's what we would do with the fund as proposed here, is to continue to do that. Adding, well, I don't, if you separate out J, then I assume we would not add it again to the pool and fund it again, depending on how that comes out. If you added to the pool and we would just add J as a facility, we would include them in that allocation as well.
So Zoe and these others are already being
They're separated
funded
out
by us through something different.
So we're not duplicating, yeah, we're not duplicating their funding.
Charitable contribution.
I appreciate that.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Baker.
and part of that discussion was the Boys and Girls Club. And I'm not adding anything to them right now. I talked to Chief just before this meeting, and they did start meeting, and it didn't quite get done. But I'm hoping the administration will bring back a supplement to Boys and Girls Club, but we're funding them level at what we have the last 2 or 3 years. And they do a tremendous job for us all over the 14 counties, and a comprehensive plan and study and how we could best do it was supposed to have already come forward, but it hadn't. But I'm willing to give them, you know, some more time to get that done, and hopefully that'll come forward before long.
Ms. Coates?
What I'm trying to understand is if the addition to Zoe as a charitable contribution constitutes a redundancy to something that's already a part of this budget or not.
I defer to the counselor. But we're not, since it is a separate allocation within that contributions budget, we are not also including them in the list of domestic violence shelters that we're funding. So from that aspect, we're not duplicating a check. So we're not paying above and beyond the $33,000 or whatever.
And I don't know that they're a domestic abuse shelter.
I'm not sure that they are either.
Yeah, I mean, what they do is they've got a food program, and they bring it in, you know, from the co-op, and sometimes the single moms pay $12, but they get like $50 worth of groceries, and better groceries than they can, you know, buy at the grocery store. And then they've got the training and the self-worth classes, and they've got all kinds of other things that I don't think it's a domestic abuse shelter.
I'm not questioning the value of the project. I'm just trying to see if we are once again doing things piecemeal rather than the idea of doing them in a more comprehensive fashion.
And it would be possible to wrap those together, fund them at whatever amount that you all think is appropriate, and then we allocate based on the number of Cherokees that each group serves, regardless of the service. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Fisher?
This don't make sense to me. We give Curtis a $4,000 generator 8 or 9 months ago. We didn't end up giving it to him. They were supposed to prep the building, they didn't prep the building, or something. Evidently Curtis and them would have had the building prepped and ready to go by the time we got the generator. They wanted to do a comprehensive study on giving generators to everybody, and it's a $4,000 generator, and I'm quite sure the study would cost more than the generator. So I want a friendly amendment to give Curtis the darn old generator, and maybe that will give admin an incentive to get this plan done and get the generator done.
Mr. Chairman, may I address the good lady from Adair County? Well, you're not studying the issue. It's not going to cost us a nickel to study the issue.
Studied the issue.
Huh?
You haven't studied the issue.
We don't, no, we know what we're going to do. We're going to buy 4 or 5 generators, put them in the warehouse down here, and any community who needs them can check them out in terms of emergency. The only thing we haven't done, apparently, is go pre-wire the building.
So we got the generator.
I presume we have them in the warehouse. The only thing that I think that we haven't done
I don't like
is
the word presume.
Huh?
Do you mean by presume?
Well, I can't tell you, my dear. I mean, my my good counsel, my dear. What I want to say, my dear counsel lady from Adair County.
You wanted to say that.
Yes. I have to tell you what I think I know, and so.
No, that's not part of the motion.
Well, I
So-
wanted to offer the friendly amendment, give him the darn generator so we can get this little thing moving along.
Could the friendly amendment maybe be that they wire his and all of our community buildings around the 14th, so when a disaster hits, we can just take generators to them?
Yes, Bill Jordan, that would be fine. Is it fine with you?
It will be great.
Okay.
I would accept that.
And will you accept that? Ms. Jordan, that's a friendly amendment.
Second, yes.
Okay, Mr. Gardner.
Is this time to get all the friendly amendments in?
This is for the chief's contributions only,
Contributions on,
for the chief.
I'm not sure if mine qualifies for contribution or not.
But is it friendly?
We're in a little bit of trouble over in District 4. Supposedly, when they was building the clinic, they tore up this road, and I'm sure that we contributed to it. And the 3 managers told them as soon as we got through, we'd fix it. And those 3 managers are no longer managing, and I'm not sure that they made this promise or not, but apparently they did. And the county commissioner said that they wanted Cherokee Nation to help on this, and I don't know how much help we can get, but my friendly amendment is $50,000 to fix this road.
What road is it?
53rd Street.
I would think that that should go through the roads department and
Through what?
through the roads.
Well, it's got to go through the budget first, doesn't it?
Okay. Well, you're offering a friendly amendment, so I'll leave it up.
Everybody shaking their head no. No.
Pardon me?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, I would have to concur with you that we need to let our roads department and the clinic administrators deal with the issue. There may be other resources available rather than taking money out of the tribe's discretionary funds to repair any damage that may have occurred during construction. There may be a subcontractor who has a bond that should be gone against. So we need to investigate that. But do reference to my kind councilman from Muskogee County, we ought to be able to investigate that without taking money out of our own pocket to review it.
Okay. So are you withdrawing?
No, sir.
I decline to accept. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just think we can get it better.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Dr. Cobb?
I just want to know how much money in friendly amendments have we actually added here? I got kind of lost track.
Doug, do you have?
What have we actually added here?
I had it 109, but then there was a couple others.
74,200.
Oh, yeah.
Roughly.
You turned down my 50.
Let's see, 1,200 rodeo, 25,000 education corporation, 5,000 adult choir, 13,500 domestic abuse shelters, 2,000 drug and alcohol prevention, 38 Zoe, 10 is it called J Federal Building or?
Freedom House.
4850, 60, 70, 80, 90, 94.2, is that what I said?
It was 10,000.
I think that's it.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
I just have one question. The Boys and Girls is somewhere, right? And they're funded at the level from last year.
Okay. I got one more question on this. After this motion, I've got one more question that
Okay, well, if it doesn't deal with this motion.
94.2.
How much?
94,002. What was that question? Is something in here?
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
And aye. Okay, the ayes have it. That's carried. Okay. Ms. Fishinghall?
Does this pertain to the rest of it? I want to talk about all these vacant positions that we're putting money in and just holding the money while I'm running out of money in my sanitation and water. Because evidently we've got a lot of money held up in vacant positions and new positions. And on top of that, when we don't fill them, we got fringe costs and everything else added in there.
Ms. Catcher, would you like to address that?
And here's what I'm wanting to know. What in the world is wrong with us keeping all the vacant positions in here and getting rid of all these new positions and using the money for services for people?
Okay, two different questions. On the vacant positions, if we take them out, the programs have no budget authority to fill those positions. They're gone.
Not the vacant ones, that's what I said.
Yeah, I understand, but I see it as a two-part question. The vacant positions basically do line up with our turnover rate, which is 10%. The new positions, in my opinion, you've got to look at each one of those individually and not just blanketly say no new positions in the 2009 budget. Because they are all across the organization, I can't tell you what impact that would have on service. As Doug said earlier, some of those are in health, a large portion of them are in human services. If you just blanketly across the board say no new positions, then you run the risk of hampering some of those services that you're wanting to deliver.
I've asked Phil numerous times about these
Okay. I think that you should, as we go through each area, if you have something, right now we're discussing the chief section.
Yeah.
If you have something about positions in there, then that needs addressing, and if you're going to make a motion to, or whatever, now's the time to do that.
I'd like to make a motion to get rid of half of all of the new positions put in the budget. Not the vacant, just half of the new that they requested.
Across the board? Just so that.
Second.
I'm just tired of money being tied up in salaries. I call it sandbagging.
There's two ways of looking at that.
Okay, but is there a second? Okay.
I'll second it, just for discussion's sake, for nothing else. Go ahead, Cal.
Okay. There's two ways of looking at it. If you don't give the budget authority, then you got to come back and ask in a mod for additional budget authority. So we're on shaky ground here, in my opinion. We all want to be as prudent as we can with the money, but from a program standpoint, if you don't have the budget authority to go out there and manage your program, and you have to come back and ask each time you want to put a new position in, then you're kind of micromanaging that budget for the program. So it's a policy decision in my mind, and yes, we do tie up some dollars in this, but that's not always a bad thing.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on the motion to eliminate half the new positions?
Done?
If there's, yes.
It's kind of a general question to Callie. Callie, they're considering these extensive vacancies, and I'm assuming a lot of those are perhaps with Hastings. That's correct?
Some of them are.
Is there a well thought out recruitment plan for these vacant positions before I take a position on this?
That is part of the issues we have tried to address in '08 and going into '09. Human Resources has put a lot of effort into identifying and coming up with recruitment plans for these difficult to recruit positions. Physicians, dentists, even accountants. I've had an accountant position open for
Very difficult.
4 to 5 months. There are a lot of difficult to recruit for positions. And Human Resources has added a couple of recruiters, and they have actually implemented a new recruiting system on our website. So yes, there has been a lot of emphasis put on this. On the healthcare front, there is a dedicated recruiter. They actually are going out to universities and recruiting people before they even graduate. So yes, I think we're making some progress.
Dr. Cobb. Oh, are you finished?
Just didn't know if you were finished.
Is the, I don't know if it's considered a negative, but is the challenge salary, or, I mean, why is it difficult to recruit them?
I think it varies by type of position. Some of it is salary. Some we're not competitive with private industry in accounting. I mean, that's part of it. Some of it's location. Believe it or not, some people don't like living in the rural areas. I think they're nuts, but some people do not want to relocate to a rural area, and most of our work locations are in rural areas.
Concerned about doctors.
Yeah.
Well, to clarify something on that doctors now, the Hastings Hospital is not contributing any to the vacant or new number.
Yeah, we're not showing any new or vacant for Hastings. We just assume bringing everybody on.
Okay.
True.
Dr. Cobb.
That was my question. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Craven.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Kelly, the reason when Jody brought this motion up, if I'm not mistaken, we've had a minimum of 3 vacancies in this legislative branch here.
Right.
Since my first term, okay? Now, if that's sort of consistent through the different branches or offices or whatever, it would seem to me that we could actually do away with half of those and not really,
But we're only discussing new positions. The motion was for half the new positions, and not the...
Okay, but you could use the same leverage as what I'm talking about. We've had the vacancies that we haven't filled, so we don't need any new positions. If the other branches have had vacant positions that they haven't filled, and they're asking now for new positions, I can understand why someone could say, let's cut them in half. That's what I'm saying.
Thornton.
Mr.
I'm
Chairman.
really hard to understand. Asking for 135 new positions, or somewhere in that vicinity, and you got 250 vacant positions. What assurance does this council have that you're going to hire the 135 new positions within 6 months or a year? I mean, when you start up new projects and you don't spend the money on those new positions last year to fulfill those new initiatives, I can't understand starting a new program and putting in, new positions or in old programs. It doesn't make sense.
And let me just address part of this. We have different groups filling out these budget forms. In my group, for example, I did the budget for the anticipated staff at Hastings that's going to transfer into the resource team. That includes human resources, purchasing, finance. On my payroll worksheet, I have 11 positions listed as new, because they're new in my group, but they're actually existing positions at Hastings that are coming over. Now, I just point that out to say, when you make a broad sweep and don't look at each individual department, there could be discrepancies between how people have put their budgets together.
Well, when you bring people over from Hastings, should there be a funding come from Hastings?
And there is.
That covers that?
There is.
Well, how many of these new positions are not covered by the Cherokee Nation?
Let me look at Doug's report here. There are 41 of the 136 that are being requested out of Gen Fund, out of tribal funding. And here again, it depends on who prepared the budget. For example, under Human Services, Juvenile Healing to Wellness Program lists 3 new FTEs, but it's new to that program, but it's really transferring some of those over from Supreme Court probably. Bright Futures is a new initiative. That's 3 new FTEs. So when you start peeling it back and looking at individual departments, some of them may be brand new, and some of them may be, I filled it out and I listed it as a new position because it's new to my group.
Now, point of clarification though, I did double check before I categorized all that batch as new, there were no employee numbers in there.
And there wouldn't have been for the ones that I have in my budget as coming over from Hastings because they're not.
But there would have been for someone coming from the judicial branch into.
Do we have positions that wasn't filled from last year's new initiative?
There could very well be.
Probably, yeah.
Especially some of the harder to fill, such as the immersion
Part of this
teachers.
250.
Yep.
Yeah, and when we pointed out, Mr. Thornton, that there are several departments and programs, specific programs, that are holding vacant positions yet requesting new ones on top of that.
But, like I said, I'm not asking for the 256 vacant ones. What I'm saying is the new, cut them in half. And as far as saying you have to come back past it out, you come back here once a month. Folks in executive and finance, we do budget bonds. If you just make a mad dash and fill all 256, plus the other 68 you live in here, you held out my money, y'all come back and ask for more money.
No, we're going to have more buildings.
Well, that's the other flip side. We're going to put them, folks.
Okay, and this is just I'm sorry.
Mr. Sow.
Yeah, since we're talking about the chief's budget, if we're going to add 4 new positions, and we have like a 10% turnover rate, can you tell me how many of those new positions would go unfilled, and how many would you expect to be filled?
I would be a wizard if I could project that. When the position.
It's a simple math question, actually.
Well, when
the 10% of 4 people is, it's either 3 people or 4 people. You either fill 100% or maybe 75.
The intent would be to fill
averages here,
yeah.
But when I hear a counselor say, let's just cut them in half,
yeah.
based upon a 10% turnover rate, I'm having trouble comprehending those statements, because if you have a 90% retention rate, and let's say the chief wanted to hire 10 people, then new positions, you expect that you could fill 9 of those, and 1 might go unfilled, based upon the statistics that you provided us with.
Yeah.
So why would we only want to fill 5 of them? I guess might be my question, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Cobb.
Kind of along the same lines, playing devil's advocate, I completely understand why they're budgeted, because to have authority to hire and all that, you don't have to come back. I understand that. I'm not debating that. But to play devil's advocate, can you give me a worst case scenario if every single position within the Cherokee Nation was filled within 6 to 8 months, what that would do to your budget?
If every single vacant and new position was actually filled within the next 6 months, I mean, basically, if those funds were taken out and I tried to go out and hire those 6 months down the road, I would fall short on my budget, whatever that person's salary is for half a year.
You do. So my point to that is, and I'm not necessarily or not, or I don't know if I am or not in agreement with Councilor Fishingham, but to play devil's advocate, you're putting these amount of positions in.
Right.
There's no way you could fill every one of those and balance your budget. I mean, is that a correct assessment?
It depends on the position and how long it takes to hire them, yes.
You start figure out where you want.
I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, no, I understand, it is a difficult, problem to address, because if you don't budget for it, how can you go out and advertise and make an offer and then say, oh, wait, I need to wait until I get budget authority? Well, that's not how we do business. We don't advertise a position unless it's in the budget.
Ms. Jordan, and then I'm going to cut off the discussion on this.
Kelly, for space reasons, do you have a allocation of the amount of square footage when you add a human to our program? Do we know what square footage that human should be allowed to take up for office space?
It depends on whether it's an office position or if it's out in a clinic or...
Well,
if it's an office position, I think the standard is like 135 square feet for 135 square feet for a person. Now, what we do is we double people up in an office. In our group, what do you need to do your job? You need a desk, and you need a computer, and you need a telephone.
So we could say maybe 80 feet.
Yeah.
80 feet per person.
Yeah.
Let's just say 80 feet for 136 new slots. For 400 slots at 80 square feet, we're going to need 32,000 more square feet than what we got. I'm not sure we could rent all the town of Tahlequah and get that.
Well, number one, not all those positions would be in Tahlequah. Number two, the ones that are vacant, we should already have a spot for them somewhere. And I mean, what we're really looking at, if you're looking at space requirements, are new positions.
And this may even be available already.
And the space is probably available for a lot of those. For example, the new positions for Hastings, those are going to continue, even though they're resource team, most of them will continue to be housed at Hastings.
I guess my concern is, one, I don't think we can fill 400 slots, but two, we don't have the space for them. So why have them in the budget? I mean, I know you want to advertise for them.
We did fill 346 slots this last year. Now that is new and vacant. So that's what I was talking about earlier with our turnover. We're hiring people every day.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I might make a quick comment.
Yes.
If we're talking about this turnover rate as being a component directly related to the vacant positions. Well, I think we're only considering half the equation. Because if we're going to assume that the vacant positions are a part of normal attrition or turnover, then we should budget turnover. Right now, we're leaving them in there knowing good and well we're going to always have that many vacant. But we're not crediting our budget for those known vacancies.
But our motion right now is to cut in half all of the new positions.
Is that right?
So, across the board. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those have it.
Okay.
And we're going to take a 10-minute break.
Sure we are.